Good morning and welcome. I'm Bob Pace. I'm your host, and here we are to fight CPS and stop taking our children or hang on to our children. You heard me right. This is the child protection system I'm talking about. It's an agency or a right arm of social services. It's supposed to do several purposes. One is to protect our children from neglect or abuse. Also, they're supposed to help out the family with social services needs if they need help. The family is struggling or there's issues within the family, they're supposed to help. If it's necessary to break the family apart, then their goal is to make the family come back together through family reunification. But sad to say, that isn't what's happening. Typically, what is happening is the child protection system takes your child, whether they're in imminent danger, and traffics them. I'm using the word traffic, it's illegal, but that's what they do, into foster care. And they alienate your child from you as parents. The Child Protection Agency is not your friend. They have a bad reputation lately. They're not transparent, they're not accountable for their actions. They do retaliation, they're mean, and they're not people friendly skills. Yes, there are exceptions. I imagine out there's a few social workers that really do care. I see that all the time. The social workers themselves are being abused by the agency because the agency's purpose is to generate income. It's $1 trillion business, not billions, not millions, but trillions. And they want to take your child and they don't want to give it back because they get money every month per child as long as they have them in the system. And I'm talking about lots of money. In my case, when my children were taken, they were getting $20,000 per child. And they if you can imagine, if you have 100 people with each family, 3 children, that's $6 million a month alone. And right now, every year, it's about 400,000 children are investigated by CPS. 400,000. And of the 400,000, probably 90% are taken in, are trafficked into the foster care system. It's really sad. I have met 2 social workers, very pleasant, very nice on my podcast. They talked for a good 40 minutes, one from Maryland, one from Indiana. And they do care about families, but they're far and few. And so I want to welcome warmly all of you listeners that are listening to this podcast, or maybe this podcast, you're listening to a recording. These shows are set aside that you can listen again and again. Now, this podcast is my way of helping you people because I care about you as an individual. I, too, was involved in the child protection system. They destroyed my family. They kidnapped 3 of my 6 children. And for 3 years, I had a battle to get them back, and I only got back 2. One was a retaliation mode where my daughter now is 22, and I don't have any connection with her, which is sad. My wife and I don't. But I am really concerned about you out there because you're in a system that you don't know about or you did not know about. The child protection system does not really help families. And I'm sorry to say that to you. Now, before I take phone calls, I'd like to tell you how you can interact with this podcast. And one of the first ways you can interact with this podcast is to be in the room like you are right now. Being in this room, listening and taking notes is all you have to do. And you will learn some things. I will share with you my stories, what has happened to me and the stories of others and what's happened to them. I've researched the internet and I have lots of topics to talk about, and I can talk about your topic and help you. I I know how hard it must be, but I really care about you people because everybody needs to be cared about. Everybody needs to be loved. And that's one thing that seems to be lacking in the child protection system attack on your family. Yes, there are families that do uh, um, get help and maybe have success stories, but I'd like to hear from them because I don't. Hi, Ian Christensen. Glad that you dropped in. You've been on before. Um, I would love to talk to you. If you can't talk now, I'm going to come on at 3 o'clock this afternoon, not at 7 o'clock. Not at 7 o'clock. I'm on at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. I have a football commitment with my family. And so I will not be on at 7 p.m. I'm on at 3 p.m. 3 p.m. So that's just about 4 hours after this morning podcast. Okay, your visit's at 3. I'm sorry. I guess it's bad timing, but I'll be on again tomorrow morning at 10 o'clock. Now, if you want to talk now, you can go ahead and call in and we can talk. I just need to finish up how to interact with this podcast. Now, while you're in this room, you can express yourself with emojis. I think that's a great way to express yourself. You can give a thumbs up, smiley faces, or show some love. I understand that, Ian. I know you've told me before that they've been severely abused. And if they're being abused for foster care, you could call the police, call 911 and say your children are being abused right now in foster care. And they'll contact CPS, or you can call CPS and tell them your children are being abused. It's wrong. It's wrong that they're being abused. And you can complain. You have rights as a parent. You have constitutional civil rights that your children are protected. And if you're not terminating your rights to your children, you have every right to protect your children. I understand you have pictures. Believe me, you may have to go to upper level people. You may have to go to the director or management. You may have to go to the ombudsman of the state or the civil rights coordinator of the state that you're in. You may have to go to the top. You may have to go even as far as contacting your Congress people, your representatives, your senator, or contact the governor, or even the federal government. Contact the president, the vice president. You're going to have to go to the top sometimes. Sometimes you have to go there. And I don't know if you're in Native American Indian, there's a Bureau of Indian Affairs. In Washington, D.C., there's the Health and Welfare office that you can go to. So there's a lot of resources. The problem is it takes time and phone calls and phone calls and phone calls. But if your children are being abused, you have a right. You have a right to protect your children. And if you're with Native American Indians, there's the ICWA Act, the Indian Child Welfare Act. Let me finish up with my how you can interact with this podcast. So let's say that you want to talk about something. You can write a comment. You can write a comment. And the comments are nothing more about your questions or concerns about your CPS. Love you, son. Have a good day. I have a family. I'm broadcasting this from home today. I'm not outdoors because I'm taking a chance with my car. I have a situation with my car that I can't park it where I live. Anyway, if you have a comment or question, please text it in. I'm broadcasting live on YouTube. I use the StreamYard application, You found me on Facebook, and fighting CPS. And I'm glad you found me because I will help you. That's my whole purpose, is to share my experience with you and help you because I care. I'm a human being that cares about others. I'm older and wiser. I have over 60 years of working experience. I'm a father of 6 children and been married for 31 years. So I do want to help you. That's something is. I'm a dinosaur, by the way. If you haven't guessed my age, I'm 73 years old. 73 years old, but I don't feel it. So you want to please show me your name. And the reason why I ask that is because so many of you have interesting creative names, and it's hard to call them by your creative name. I like a name like John or Mary or Bill or something. And I really like to help you. And um, I know it's really hard and you're struggling. We have one person this morning, Ia, and she is struggling. Her kids that are in foster care are being abused, and I'm really sorry for that. And she's also a Blackfoot Indian. And if you're an Indian, a Native American Indian, all you have to do is be registered or get registered by your tribe. Contact your tribe. Tell the CPS that you're a Native American Indian. And they have an act that was passed in 1978 called the Indian Child Welfare Act, ICWA. And what it does, it allows the social workers to move you guys to with the Indian tribe, and the tribe members can help you um, um, get your family reunificated. I have talked to Cherokees, Lakota Sioux, and uh, Rosebud Reservation in South Dakota. As I said, I mentioned the Cherokee Nation in Oklahoma. I've talked to many different people with tribes, and it does work. But you have to be careful because the Cherokees in Oklahoma, they have a problem there because the executive director of the Cherokee tribe is also the state attorney general. There's a conflict of interest, and one mother is having a hard time with her case, her CPS case, because the Indians are not helping the way they should be. So as I say, always be careful. You have to keep your heads up and look for the unexpected. So show your name, show your city, state, or country, and be complete with your CPS case. Be complete with your CPS case. Now, I mentioned country only because I have comments from around the world. This is a worldwide podcast. Anybody that has Facebook can find us and put us up and watch us in any particular country. If you have the internet, you'll find us. And some of the countries that I've talked to, love you, son. You have to, that's my other son. I have 2 boys, by the way. I have a real family. 2 of my children are living with me, and the other 4 are AWOL. Away. Anyway, the countries. I've spoken to Bangladesh, New Delhi, India, the province in South Africa on the west coast, Mozambique, which is above on the east coast, opposite Madagascar, the island. Rwanda, which is near Lake Victoria, and Rwanda suffered a terrible tragedy in '94 when 1 million people were exterminated, killed, slaughtered of civil unrest, and over 500,000 females were raped, horrifically raped. But the country has survived. Like anything in this world, we will survive. And how do we survive? Because we got to love one another. We got to protect one another. We got to help one another. And then I go up to Europe, and it's been England, Scotland, and Wales, part of the United Kingdom, that have texted in. I've had Denmark and Sweden. Then across the pond into North America, I have Canada. Both sides of Canada have contacted me through comments. And then, of course, the United States. I've heard from every state in the United States, including Washington, D.C. And they've either called in or texted in or been a part of this room. And I have helped them. I've had 2 social workers that have called in and talked on this show. So I do try to extend myself out to all people, because my whole purpose here is to keep your families together, or to bring your families back together, to help others, because family has been proven that the biological parents, the mother and fathers, are the best parents, The biological fathers are the best parents. Now we go further south to Mexico, and I've had a father call in looking for his daughters in Louisiana. Then in South America, I've had a country called Guyana that is on the east coast above Brazil, east of Venezuela. Their coastal town is Georgetown. It's a small country. They have texted in comments about CPS. Oh, I forgot one country in Africa, Liberia, on the west side. And that is Northern Africa. It's a small town on the coast, and a guy named Archie had texted in several times about what he does with the Boy Scouts. Boy Scouts is a good organization for both girls and boys to join and learn about all kinds of skills, such as outdoor skills, camping, fire making, learn about values and stuff. Well, he's involved with the Boy Scouts. And right now, girls are now part of Boy Scouts. So it's no longer Boy Scouts, it's called Scouting. But anyway, he has called it a text in the room and told me about CPS in Liberia. So anyway, we moved from South Africa to North America to South America. Now we're going to cross the Pacific to the land down under, which is Australia. And several people have texted from Australia. So I do have an international exposure, which is good, because they have the similar problems we all have here in the States. It is really sad that the protection of our children are not really being protected, and the ones that need protection are not being protected. There are thousands of children that are trafficking into the sex industry, that are killed, that are maimed and stuff. We do need to protect our children. You hear cases all the time about that. So please text in your comments and so forth there. A third way to interact with this podcast is to be a guest. Be a guest. Now, to be a guest, it's a simple process. Also, being a guest, you could be next to me live, and we could talk and help you. You can help others and get the chance to share your story. I can have up to 10 guests on StreamYard. I can have up to 10 windows there. So there's plenty of room for as many guests that want to be on my show. Now, I'm on 14 times a week. That's 7 days, Monday through Sunday, twice a day. Typically, I'm on at 10 in the morning and for 1 hour Pacific Standard Time, and in the evening, 1 hour, 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. There are exceptions. Every Sunday, I'm on at 8 o'clock in the morning. I have a family commitment Sunday morning with my family. It's the church day. So I do like to be with my family. So I come on early at 8 a.m. in the morning Pacific Standard Time. Also, during the week, sometimes I have family activities. As I say, I'm a family man. And today, I have a family activity with my son, football. And so I'll be gone to watch him play and watch his game and cheer him on. And so I'll be gone this afternoon and evening. So I will not be doing the 7 o'clock podcast. I'll be coming on at 3 p.m. So to be a guest, all you have to do is contact Grace, who's our show producer. She works it very hard behind the scenes to make this podcast successful. And I want to thank her for her hard work and helping me. Now, let me see. We have somebody just came in the room. I want to welcome them. Hey, Faye. I am so glad that you've come on. That is so good to see you. Faye is a single mother. She is from Richmond, Kentucky, and she comes to my podcast and helps me immensely. She's like my co-host, but she doesn't want to be live on the camera. Not that she's afraid what she looks at, because she has other commitments in her life and she cannot be a full-time host. But she has a wealth of information. She knows about safety plans. She knows about so much of the things. And she is right now trying to get guardianship of her 23-year-old son. And it's a struggle because the police she found are very corrupt. In fact, Kentucky holds the recognition as the number one state with problems in child protection system. Not only that, the police is corrupt. And it's really sad. They have a young governor who spoke a couple nights ago, and I got to hear him, but he's oblivious to what's going on in his own backyard. It's so hard with politicians. They don't care what goes in their backyard. And if we as a group here contact our politicians and complain about child protection service, we need to make changes. And the only changes you're going to make is at the Congress level. That's where the changes are made. It seems useless to write or hold rallies and everything, try to work at the local or the state level. There's too much corruptness. Everybody that's a politician seems to be thinking about their interests in money. It's all money. And it's sad to say, yes, we're a wealthy nation, but we need to help our people in our country. We need to help our people in our country. We have open borders right now with administrative that doesn't care. Our borders were secured 4 years ago, but the new administration unsolved it, and then they've been playing politics, blaming people that are not true. It's really sad, and I don't want to get too caught up in politics, but it seems you have to go out and vote. Voting is important. It's also for judges in CPS. The judges are not appointed in dependency court. They're elected. And you, as parents, got to make sure you pick the right kind of judges. Judges that are schooled in dependency court. Judges that are former attorneys. Judges that have a background in fighting CPS. Those would be the great judges, because the judges that I've seen, I've heard about, are very corrupt. And it's all like the pals world in the dependency court. They go have lunch together. They go ahead and play golf together. And the judges and the social worker attorneys and the children's attorneys and anybody that's a court-appointed attorney or with child protection service are friends of the judge, including the bailiff. The judges, and my experience in court was terrible. I could not be in the courtroom. My wife and I had to sit in the hallway. We couldn't see what was taking place. Also, you'll find that the children are not allowed in the court with you. It's really sad that they keep everything, because why? They want to alienate your children. They don't want the children here that you're getting yourself better. They don't want to give up hope. They want that child to be adopted in foster care system. And the foster care system is corrupt. Now, if you look at 100 people, I'd say right now you're probably looking at 80 to 90% foster care is bad. If you look at social workers, 80 to 90% are bad. There's a small few. All right. Now, I've introduced Faye from Richmond, Kentucky. We're talking about being a guest. So all you do is type in, you send an email to grace@vincentwdavis.com. grace@vincentwdavis.com. I told you my hours. You just pick Monday morning show, Wednesday evening show, Saturday morning show, Sunday evening show. That's all you have to tell her. And remember, I can have 10 guests in this room. And We could all be talking. Of course, we have to talk one at a time. The most I've had in this room has been a total of 4. But I'd love to have all of you as my guests, and we could talk about what to do about CPS, how to help one another. Faye calls a lot of people to help them. Faye's one of those individuals like me that want to help out others. And we have firsthand knowledge. And neither one of us is wealthy or have time on our side. We all are struggling. And it seems like the majority of the people that come in here are struggling. So please send your email request to Grace at vincentwdavis.com, and she will get you aboard as a guest. She'll give you the link to StreamYard, which is the application I use on YouTube, and she'll tell you what to do and not to do, such as no eating or smoking. And then furthermore, we don't use names of social workers, of children, of judges. We don't do that. Okay, so that's the third way. I've talked about first way, being in the room. Second way, to type in comments. Third way, to be a guest. The fourth way is call in. And as you saw this morning, I had the phone number on there, but I took it down because I don't want to take calls to interrupt, because it's hard for someone to sit there on the phone for 5 minutes while I'm talking about something else. So that's why I took the phone number down. So the phone number is up. That means you can call in. It's 626-698-0990. The phone line is open. That means you can call in and talk about your case, or talk about questions, or make comments about CPS. I know a lot of you anger. Some of you have been fighting CPS for 10 years. Some of you have lost your children for 10 years. It's sad, and you still reach out. You're searching. You're searching for remediation. You're searching for how to make this a better place. The child protection system is needed. There are children that are being neglected and abused. But what's happened is it's become corrupted. It's a rogue agency. It's the worst agency you can deal with, more so than the IRS. Now, the child protection system is different all across the country, with their rules and regulations and whether they require a license. In Kentucky, you're supposed to have a license to be a social worker in the CPS. In California, you're not required for a license. And I think it's a good idea to have a license, but the license should be enforced. If you don't have a current license, you're excused as a social worker. I know it's your job and you're trying to make a living, and it's a terrible job. You're overworked, you're overtaxed. And the sad part is there's a bad group of apples in CPS that makes it look bad for everybody. I know they're good social workers, and if you listen, please call in, social workers. I'd like to hear from you. Now, a lot of us are wondering, and maybe you're new to this room or new to this podcast, what are social workers? What's their background? What are they? Well, they're a human being like you and I. They needed a job. But it's sad to say that job requirements are not very well strict. It seems the majority of social workers are not required to have a college degree. Like they could have a college degree in social work and a minor in clinical psychology, because you do deal with psychology, and it's important that you have that background. And you should have that. And when you apply for a job, if you don't have the experience, then I think you should be with a mentor for, let's say, 5 years, so you get to see how that person deals with families. Too many times social workers are hired and put in right into the fire, right away making decisions about taking your children from your home. And taking your children from a home should be because there's imminent danger. It should be imminent danger. Now, my rule number 4 talks about entering your home, about talking to social workers or policemen entering your home, or policemen talking to policemen. It also talks about medical trafficking. And the reason why I'm bringing it up, I have 5 rules that I've developed. And one of my rules was because of Faye, who came up with the rule. And if anybody else has got rules, we'd like to add them. But I throw them throughout my show. And I'm hoping down the road. I just attended a work seminar to better my podcasting. And there's a program out there that I'm hoping that I can put a lot of these rules as my backdrop. I'm hoping to make my screen bigger so that you can see that and see my backdrops and put how to interact with this podcast on one side, and on the other side, put what the rules are. And that way they're there. That way you see them, just like you see my comments down there that there is there. So rule number 4 is very important because too many of us, including myself, allow social workers and police to come into our home. You know, your home is supposed to be your castle. And too many people are opening the door to strangers. And I got news for you. The police and social workers are strangers, even though they represent a government agency. They're not your friend, and the majority of the police have turned bad. I'm sorry to say that. There are right now really severe cases of people opening their door and being killed. There was a guy named Roger, and I'm only speaking about him because his background, he was a young man starting out with life. He had joined the Air Force as an airman, and he had a very important role in the Air Force. He had used the money he had earned and got himself an apartment. And furthermore, he had moved from Alabama to Florida because that's where the Air Force job was stationed. And he had a loving mother from Alabama who brought up her son with good values. Anyway, he was living in an apartment, a nice apartment in a gated apartment complex. Unfortunately, a call went out, a 911 call to the Gainesville Sheriff Department. And that's another thing with these 911 calls. I think some more investigation should go in. I think, I know that time is important and people's lives are on the sign, but they should be able to tell you whether it's a life or death situation. Not all 911 calls, you have to jump into action. There's too many first-time responders chasing like ambulance drivers. They drive around and they race to the scene. And so we got to improve our 911 system. We have to have people trained to recognize things. Well, anyway, person calls in, and it was a lady that was a manager at the apartment complex, says there's domestic violence. She didn't quite say what apartment was. She wasn't sure herself. So that's a bad thing. Lay people seem to mess things up for all of us. I'm not against lay people reporting it, but they got to be intelligent enough not to use retaliation or be stupidity about to have people falsely accused. So, with that being said, the Gainesville sheriff showed up. But apparently they forgot all their people skills that they learned. And instead of maybe investigating the surroundings, like listening in and finding out if he's at the right place, what it was mistaken identity. The gentleman inside, the black gentleman, was talking to his girlfriend on FaceTime. And there was no domestic violence going on in his apartment. And the manager was confused. So here it is. That manager had something to do with that young boy being killed. And you're saying killed? Yeah, because the policeman, instead of doing careful investigation, stood in front of the door and banged on it, said nothing, banged on it again. And this is all from the cam recorder of his vest. And he banged on it. He said, "Open up, police," or "Open up, sheriff." That was not a friendly way of doing something. Okay, Faye has also sent me some important links, which I'll talk to in a moment here. I'm going to finish up with my rule number 4 here about opening the door. So this gentleman came to the door, opened the door, and because he had a gun, he's required to have a gun. I mean, he has a gun because he has a license to have a gun. It wasn't pointing at the door; it was pointed down to the ground because he's worried because he didn't know who it was. The sheriff, without asking anything further, fired 5 times point blank into the airman's chest. Into the airman's chest. Okay, yes, Faye.
Hey, Bob.
Hey, you want me to finish this rule number 4, or you got something you like to talk?
Yeah, go ahead and finish your rule.
Okay, I'm just doing this one only about answering the door, and maybe I'm elaborating on this a little bit because I'm trying to tell people to think twice about opening the door. And so this guy shot the policeman. He was on FaceTime, and he died talking to his girlfriend on the phone. You think about the traumatic effect of someone who loves each other, or the effect his mother had in Alabama. I'm really trying to emphasize, please do not open the door to nobody. If someone's at the door, it isn't life or death. You open the door. I mean, if you have a cardiac arrest happening or you need special medical, yes, you're going to open the door and let the paramedics in. But 9 out of 10 times that isn't the case. And also, you can arrange it so that your family and friends can call ahead and say they're coming over to open the door, or maybe there's a special knock or doorbell ring. But please don't open the door. And that also goes for policemen. Learn to work from the side of the door. Don't stand in front of the door. You can be shot through the door. It works both ways.
Oh, my God.
And then you could be down low on the door frame to the side and not be in front of the door. And you could ask the gentleman, what should have happened is a police officer should have said in a people-friendly, hi, this is the sheriff department. We have a report of domestic violence. Are you alone? Are you alone? Faye has a cat that gets in a lot of trouble. Excuse me for the the cat story. We are a live show, and we are a very friendly show. And so we like to keep some humor going and so forth. And he could have said that. So he sounded friendly enough. And then he could have told the person on the other side to lay down with your hands behind your head. And if you have a weapon, put it to the side of you so that he could see it. Then he can turn the doorknob, peer around from the door frame, not stand in front of the door, and assess the situation. And if he sees the man or the woman on the floor, he can sit there and put handcuffs with the person having their heads there, and then scoot the weapon further away so he knows where the weapon is. And then he can search the apartment for anybody else. That man would be alive today if that policeman had learned how to enter a locked door. Everybody should think about that. Doors are your security. And so many of us open the door because the policeman will violate your constitutional rights and put their foot in the door and try to break in. Why? Because they have an egotistical sense that they want to be tough guys. They want to give policemen. Also, the policemen feel they've had a bad rap and they're not being treated fairly. Policemen are important. I love the policemen, but where I live, the police are foul and corrupt. And where Faye lives, the police are foul and corrupt. So I'm really emphasizing that door. Also, don't talk to social workers or policemen. Don't talk to them unless you have an attorney present. You'll need that. You'll need that, and you're allowed to. One way, if you're outside and you encounter a policeman or a social worker, you can say, I need a timeout. I need to speak to my lawyer. It's my constitutional right to be represented through all legal matters. I will get back to you. What is your name? And make sure if it's a policeman, you copy their badge number down. He may have a business card. Also, the social worker, check their ID. Write their name down because social workers and police lie. I'm afraid a lot of people lie. From your top politician to all the way down, people lie. And so that's important. And then you tell them you get back to them. You're diffusing the situation. You're diffusing the situation. And I'm talking more to help you all understand about opening the door and about talking to social work. Anything you say will be used against you. I made a mistake and showed all these people that were trying to investigate me to find something. They didn't have anything on me, but they wanted to find something. And I talked way too much to them. And I didn't know what I know now. So I'm telling you, in rule number 4, you don't open the door, you be quiet, you go to the back part of your home, and then you wait because they will leave, and they will come back with a court order, with a warrant, because there's only 3 ways to get your home. 1, you give them permission. 2, there's domestic violence going on. What I mean by that is that people are fighting. Maybe the child is being slammed against the wall because it's crying. Or maybe the husband and wife are fighting with knives or guns or whatever. The policemen and the social workers are coming. And why they come together? Because the social workers have learned that policemen are intimidation factors. They show up in their combat boots. They show up in their bulletproof chest plates that stick way out. They look like RoboCop. And they come in there and they're very intimidating. So that's why the policemen are with social workers. By law, they cannot enter your place without 3 things. You allow them in, there's domestic violence going on, or there's a court order. And that court order has got to be an important documentation that's signed by a judge, and that is that specifically addresses your name or the name of your wife. If you're a couple, or if you, for instance, have children, their names will be listed in the allegations, and the address of where they're going to do the investigation, and the date and time they can do the investigation, and what they're allowed to do. Talk to you, take your children, enter the home, and search. So, you got to make sure it's a warrant and signed by a judge, a wet signature with an embossed stamp. That means you touch the paper, you fill the bumps on the paper. A lot of times they'll do copies of warrants, or it's the weekend, they'll make a copy. The judges aren't open on the weekend. So if they say we have a warrant and it's the weekend, no, I mean, it's just, and again, don't talk, don't say anything. Eventually, they will contact you. They'll come back again, or you'll contact them and head them off. So what I recommend to do is contact an attorney. I know you don't have money, and I didn't have money, but I sold my home. There are ways that people can get money. There are ways you can get money. An attorney will talk to you about entering the home and what to do and what not to do, and talk about your case. And they have a retainer. And I know that a lot of good ones are expensive, but there's still good ones out there. And that leads me into my rule number 1, is you need to get an attorney. And that attorney is Vincent W. Davis. He produces this podcast. He is a attorney for 35 years with a background in dependency, juvenile, family law. He knows how to fight CPS. He's a great attorney. He'll fight in any state. He'll fight in Northern California. He has cases all the time. He'll work it in there. He cares about you. And right now, he's offering a consultation through me. I asked him. He will speak to you for 30 minutes, and he'll only charge you $60. That's $2 a minute. Where are you going to find an attorney that is that professional that will talk to you? Most attorneys charge anywhere from $300 to $1,000 an hour. So, and they charge for increments of time and so forth. So it's very important that you have an attorney. You're going to say, wait a minute, I have a court-appointed attorney. I got news for you. Your court-appointed attorney are useless. I'm not saying you can't use them, but be forewarned. Their caseload is 30 or more clients. They will not talk to you outside of court. The first time you meet your attorney will be in the courtroom. That's not time to prepare for your case, to answer the charges. They will not meet with you any other time, and they certainly won't fight for your case. They're going to look for the easiest way out because they don't have time. They don't have the experience. They're not your top attorneys in dependency law. They're beginning attorneys looking for a job, looking for some way to get background. And they're certainly not going to fight the social workers or the judge or anything because everybody there goes out to lunch together or plays golf together. And I know this from firsthand experience. I was in a CPS case in Orange County, California. It was a terrible agency. It's called the Child Protection Service. It has the same name as the Child Protection System, CPS. And it was terrible. It was terrible. So if you know anything about heart surgery, are you going to do it yourself or get a mechanic or a plumber? No, you get a professional doctor, one that's trained. Same thing goes for fighting in dependency court because you're fighting an agency that is corrupt. You're fighting an agency like your Alice in Wonderland. You went in the garden, fell down the rabbit hole, and you met the Chester cat who's telling you all kinds of crazy stories. They aren't your friend. They will not help you. They will bring you up, they'll mislead you, and break your heart. I've heard too many parents on this podcast that have had their heart broken, who have lost their children, who's had their children further hurt in foster care. So in all importance, talk to Mr. Davis. It's simple. You just make a phone call to 888-888-6582. That's the office. Tell the office that Bob Pace sent you. And when you speak to Mr. Davis, tell him that Bob Pace sent you. It's very important. And he'll talk to you for 30 minutes about the strategies of how to fight your case, how to get your children back. And if you like him, talk to him about retaining him. He has a retainer. And the retainer is a special retainer built on how complex your case is and how long the case has been going on. Also, the further away you'll have to tack on per diem. And that is his transportation on the ground or in the air or the hotel accommodations and the food. Because he needs to eat, he needs to get there. So it is a lot of money, and it's a lot of money most of us don't have. I found it by selling my home, and it was sad I did that. I worked 40 years for my home. 40 years, 60 hours a week, and sold my home so I get my kids back. And I know how it hurts because I'm struggling now. I'm struggling so bad right now. And I do this podcast to help me, to help you, to tell you not to make the same mistakes. So listen to my rule number 4. Listen to my rule number 1. Get an attorney. You don't want to fight it. I tried to fight it without an attorney. Pro se. That doesn't work. They are corrupt. And I went to the top dog. The top dog of Orange County had a Taj Mahal of an office. Not for his staff, for himself. It was something like 20 stories tall. It looked like the Taj Mahal of India. I don't know if you've seen it, but it's a magnificent temple there in India. And on top of that, and I'm a world traveler, by the way. I've been around the world, I've been around the world probably 40, 50 times. And I've lived in some of the most exotic places. But I'm telling you, this guy was corrupt. I met with him, fought him through my emails and texts and stuff. He's useless. It went in one ear, went out the other. His supervisors are cronies that do what he says. They're very corrupt because why? They're making $20,000 off each of my children, $6 million a month based on a family of 3 children, 100 families. Anyway, I have Faye on here, and I've talked a lot. I've talked about some rules. I've talked about things today, and maybe my emotions are coming to the surface. We all have emotions. But I'd like Faye in the next 10 minutes to maybe talk about some of the things that she has put on my phone. And the first thing that she put on there, I'm putting it on the screen, is that it's called a news break. And what I'm going to do is look at that, Faye, if you don't mind. And
Okay.
I'm glad that you that you called in. She does it on my own personal phone because I cannot do the links here. I cannot copy and paste and do the links. but maybe this has voice, maybe not, and I can share it with you. Okay. It's asking me to load an application called Newsbreak, Faye. Is that a good application?
It's okay. I can read it.
Okay. I'm going to let Faye talk because I have to load the application. Go ahead, Faye.
Okay. So there was a judge, a judge that was also a judge in Kentucky. She was a former judge for District 7, and she's been found guilty on charges of criminal mischief stemming from an incident that occurred in Auburn. Sue Carol Browning, 60, of Auburn, was found guilty on one count of second-degree criminal mischief on Wednesday during a jury trial at Logan District Court, according to court documents. In November 2023, the Logan County Sheriff's Office said parents were attending an elementary school Thanksgiving meal when they notified school resource officer Vince Brown about a woman with a knife threatening to cut parents' tires in a parking lot close to the school. Mrs. Brown responded to a parking lot at the back of 141 North Lincoln Street. Authorities say he observed the woman slash two tires of a vehicle with a butcher knife before he confronted her as she held the knife over her head. Browning was identified as the woman at the scene. Authorities say she was later arrested. According to court documents, Browning's other charges included, now this is how they get slapped on the wrist. So she only got one criminal mischief charge, but she had all these other charges that were tacked on. It said, according to court documents, Browning's other charges included second-degree disorderly conduct, second-degree fleeing and evading police on foot, a second count of second-degree criminal mischief, menacing and tampering with physical evidence. They were all dismissed in February. Now, do you see how that is? That's just crazy. It says, Browning has additionally been ordered to pay restitution in the amount of $693.
Wow.
So she got one charge out of the 7 she was charged with.
Wow. What can we
and
go ahead.
She had a knife. And she had a knife in her hand when she was caught doing it. And the police didn't shoot her.
So what was the final outcome?
I mean, she was charged with criminal mischief and made to pay $600 restitution.
Did it go through or did she get off?
She actually was charged with the criminal mischief and found guilty of it. And then the other 8 charges, I believe. Let me see. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7 charges were dismissed.
Wow.
I like how they just get a slap on the wrist for everything they do. You know, and then on top of that, the police caught her with a knife in her hand, wielding it around. She had done slash tires and everything else. And the cops didn't shoot her.
Yeah.
You know, since she was such a threat, she had a weapon and everything, you know, like the boiling pot of water and the guy with the gun to the side of him on the phone with his girlfriend. Yeah.
Wow. Jeez, I just
I just thought I would share it because this makes, I don't know how many judges in Kentucky that get criminal charges, driving under the influence, driving while under the influence of substances, you know, out committing crimes, and they get a slap on the wrist every single time simply because they're a judge or a former judge. She's probably one of 10 or 15 in the last 10 years that have been doing illegal things and just get slapped on the wrist for it.
Now,
we had a judge named Tim Noland. And he was trafficking people, kids, women, trafficking them, giving them drugs, giving them alcohol, doing unprofessional things behind the bench quarters with them and everything else. He gets sent to prison, but he still got slapped on the wrist because he got the ultimate level of protection in prison because he was a judge. So he didn't have to be in population. He got preferential treatment in prison. And then he also gets to get out of prison, earlier than he should with all the charges that he had. So it's just like, why? Why do these people get preferential treatment? If it was you, me, or Tommy or Sue down the street, we would get probably the max for all of that stuff. It's just disgusting. Disgusting.
How are judges picked in the state of Kentucky? How are the judges picked?
They're elected.
Okay. And this is election year. So all of you that are listeners, go out and vote. If you want the judges to be good judges, you need to pick ones that have a background in dependency law, family law, juvenile law. You want them that have actually been in those kinds of areas. My judge knew all about car claims, automobile accidents, but knew nothing about family reunification or how to help families get back together. I mean, that is the sad part of things. We need to get our families back together. And we need, the family it's been shown, and I've said this repeatedly, time and time again, that the parents are the best thing. So if there's a hiccup out there, it shouldn't be the end of the world. It shouldn't be where automatically they put your children into foster care, they traffic them, and they alienate you from your parents. So many children are confused. Now, I know a 2-month-old baby or maybe a 1-year-old baby and so may not quite understand, but they do it with 5-year-olds and 10-year-olds and 15-year-olds. They don't tell what the parents are doing, how they're trying to get better, or the things of the future. They're destroying our kids. They're destroying our kids. Now, was there another article that was there something else you'd like to share since I have you live on the podcast?
No, I don't have any of it pulled up right now. I just wanted to share that because it's just
right.
We goes on all the time here.
Yeah. Well, I'm so glad you called in. I'm so glad you called in, Faye, because it helps to have, besides myself, someone else talking. And sometimes we have ups and downs. Like today, we've only had about 10 people in the room. Sometimes we have 15 or 20. And sometimes we have lots of comments. We've only had one comment today from a Blackfoot Indian, Ian Christensen. And she's really worried about her child because she says that they're being abused in foster care. What would you recommend to her if you could talk to her about your kids in foster care are being abused? Would you call the police? Would you call the Child Protection Agency? Or would you do nothing?
It's very hard.
I know it is.
To get anything done when a child's being abused in the system. The police work so closely with the workers that they don't want to go against the grain with it, so it's almost hard-pressed to get a cop to even do anything about it. The only thing that you really can do is just, if you can, take pictures of the bruises and the marks or whatever that,
document it. Document it.
Document it. Take pictures of it. And then also file complaints That way there's a paper trail of all of it. File a complaint with the police department about it. And then if that doesn't work, maybe send the police out to do well checks, and document that, and the outcome of that. Because if they're going out and they're doing well checks and they're not checking the children when there's an abusive complaint going on, if they can see that there's bruises on the kids or, marks or black eyes or whatever, then the cop has a duty to check those children and ask where these marks, bruises, and black eyes are coming from and why.
Right. Okay, I'm going to have to wrap this up. I've gone over an hour, and we've had someone come in at 3 minutes after the hour named Jessica Deanna. I'm not scooting you off, Jessica, but please call back in. I'm going to be again on early today at 3 p.m. this afternoon, Jessica, so please come in there. I have read that she has a story about corruption and how your family's children are. But please call back today at 3 or tomorrow morning at 10, and I can address and talk to you. Call between my show hours. All right? I want to thank Faye for calling in and sharing what she was sharing with us about the news of corrupted judges. Thank you, Jessica, for coming in. And thank you, Ian. And I want you to call me back again at 3 o'clock today. Thank you all for listening. This is Bob Pace, wishing you to keep fighting for your kids. God bless you. And I'm signing off.